God's grace meets us where we are at and not where we should be. We think, oh my gosh, I have to be perfect. I have to be doing all these things that the Bible says in order to earn God's love, but God's love cannot be earned. God's love is not a reward that we can earn with good behavior. And that's something that I have to remind myself all the time, because I will catch myself sort of getting into pride and being like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting the word, I'm not going to church because I feel unworthy. I feel like I haven't been a very good Christian or follower lately. But that's not how it works. God's grace meets us where we are at. And that's what we're kind of diving into in Joshua 2. You know from Joshua 1 that Joshua is preparing the Israelites to go to war with Jericho in order to get back the promised land. And so he sends out 2 spies to Jericho to sort of help them come up with a strategy or a plan on how they're going to approach this attack. It's important to note that Joshua does not say specifically to enter into Rahab's house. He tells the spies to go look over the land, especially Jericho. And so they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. So when these spies enter into Rahab's home, she has 2 options, basically. She can either turn them in to the king of Jericho and be like, yeah, these guys broke into my house, get them out of here. Or she can hide them, but she's going to have to lie in the process. Rahab ends up hiding the spies. She says, I've heard everything that's been going on with your God, and I believe him. It doesn't directly say Rahab had to lie, but it's sort of implied through the actions, because when King Jericho asks her where the men are, if they're hiding in her home, she says, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. So, but really she's helping hide them on the roof, if I'm correct. But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax she had laid out on the roof. So she knows saying that. And so here is something that I was kind of struggling with is we are told not to lie. Why is it okay in this situation? It feels like God is sort of honoring her in this chapter. Why is that? Because she had to lie, even though it was for a good reason. It's okay, if someone goes and steals from a store, but it's because their kids are starving, does that make it okay? What I'm learning in this chapter is that God is not honoring Rahab's lie. He is honoring the fact that she trusted him, even though she didn't know a whole lot and she couldn't see him, right? But she just trusted that she believed, and she took this huge risk and did have to lie, which it's not endorsing lying. It's not saying, okay, yep, this lie was okay. Obviously there's a lot of parts in the Bible that are don't do that. But I feel like this is definitely showing how God's grace meets us where we're at. When this happens, she is a prostitute and she is not a part of the covenant, right? She's not this firm believer who's in the word every day. She doesn't know the ethics of the Bible or God's laws or anything. And she's just trusting him. And so God is meeting her where she's at. God is not honoring Rahab's lie in all of this. What he is honoring is her protecting his people, her willingness to act in faith, even though she doesn't know a whole lot yet. It's just she's going off of what she heard, and her recognizing and believing him regardless. God never tells them that, go to Rahab's house, but he allows them to make those decisions. And the spies chose her house, we believe, based on practical reasons. And God uses it to help save her. Without taking away free will, God saves Rahab because he's not forcing her to believe. She believes on her own. He knew already that what Rahab was going to do, but he didn't force her to do it. And that's the whole point throughout the whole Bible is free will. God opened the door, but Rahab chose to walk through it. And so there's so many things in life, right, where God opens that door for us, but we don't walk through it. And it seems oh, well, it's so simple, but it's it actually ends up being a lot more complicated, because most of the time we don't walk through that door, even though it's wide open. Rahab heard, she believed, and she acted on it. And so God is not saying, oh yeah, that lie is okay, but he's meeting her where she's at. This is all she knows. These are the tools that she has at this point in time, but she's choosing to believe in him freely, and her actions are glorifying him. And so he is honoring her in that, not the lie, but in her believing and acting on it. God saves people mid-story, mid-mess, mid-chaos, not after they're all cleaned up, not after they're perfect, not after life is great. Why would we even need him, right? Faith comes first. Transformation comes after. The transformation follows once someone says, you know what? I believe in you. I want to shape my life around what you want for me, help guide me, and then the transformation will follow. It might not be like, oh, overnight, everything's perfect. I'm a millionaire. I have a big, beautiful, my life is great, right? But the transformation will begin. I feel like the closer you are to God, the more in the Word you are, the more you're talking to God and praying and all the things, you are going to sense when you're not supposed to do something, right? And so I guess in this moment, Rahab doesn't really know that lying is wrong. Like, yes, in a general sense, she might be like, oh, but she doesn't really know the word, the laws. She doesn't know the ethics because she's sort of just diving into this faith, right, for the first time. And I think the phrase is like, faith now, transformation later. Like, you can start your faith journey no matter where you are in life, no matter how messy your life looks like, no matter how many sins you've made or mistakes you've made in your life. It is never too late. Your life is never too far gone to start your journey with Christ. And so I feel like Rahab's story is so important because it's kind of showing that, that you can be at this really low point and be doing all these things that the Bible says not to do, or, at that time that the law said not to do. God still loves you and he will meet you where you're at.